Recording in progress.
Okay, I'm calling back to order this regular meeting of council. Again, just respectfully acknowledging that this meeting and business is taking place on the traditional unceded territory of the Stanawas First Nation. For the viewership's benefit, there was additional information for item 9A of the agenda. And other than that, we'll move on in our agenda. So we're on to item, make sure I got it right. On item 7 of the agenda, so the consent agenda, I'll just make the motion that the recommendations listed for items 7A through 7E in the consent agenda be approved. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Savage. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. We're on to public input period. Seeing no members of the public in the gallery. Do we have anybody remotely registered? No, okay, so I'm not gonna bother reading the preamble, we'll just move on to item 9A of the agenda, so this is bylaw number 342. I'll just make the motion that the District of Lantzville 2023 tax rates bylaw number 342, 2023 be given first, second, and third readings. Is there a seconder to that? Second by Councillor Savage, and then for discussion, at this point, nothing really to add to the seconder, if you wish.
Thank you. Yes, I was looking at amending the tax rates for the managed forest. However, I understand there's some problems attached to that. So if I could hear from staff first, please, about some of the problems. And just a preamble to that is I began this last November to look into, and I didn't find out until yesterday that it was possible to increase the managed forest rate. So I'm under a bit of a time crunch. I like doing things in a little more steady and timely fashion. So it was really something I've been working on for 6 months. But I still would like to hear what the what some of the endemic problems are. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. Just I would like to clarify that we have to follow several rules and constraints that set for the multiples when we calculate the tax rates. So the multiples for the library rates have to follow the multiples set for the general municipal rates. What this means that, like for example, after we set the rate for Lantzville's general municipal tax, we have to follow exactly the same multiple for the library tax rate. Like for example, if we increase the multiple from 8 to 20 on the municipal tax levy, we have to use 20 to apply to the library tax rate as well. So that might answer part of your question. Like if we just increase the tax on the municipal side, what's the impact to the library? That means we have to increase a certain amount, on the library side, because the tax rates proposed to this meeting already calculated to match exactly the tax levied for the library and the municipal operations. If we change or increase the multiples now, that means we will increase the tax income from the municipal operations, as well as the library tax has to increase as well.
So let me ask, please, if you had the following year for the 2024 tax rates,
No, we don't.
would it be possible to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish then? Is it a question of needing more time, or?
For 2024, like the council has to set the goal. Like for example, for this year, 2023, our goal is not to increase tax levied for the municipal operations. Last year was 3.067 million, and this year we say it will remain unchanged. So we have to know the total tax levy set by the council, then we'll work on the tax rates. Like, for example, if you increase the tax rates for a class, for example, you could reduce the same amount from the residential tax. So the total, the sum will remain unchanged. Like, you cannot just carve out one tax rate and say, you know, I want more tax from this class. You have to think about what happens to other classes.
Yeah, so while it's possible, it's preferable that you're given a full year to do this?
Oh, that's sufficient time. It's for 2024. We can definitely make changes or make improvements. There's no problem.
And what is your advice? To try to do this in 2023 or to leave it till 2024?
My advice is to do it in 2024 because every year, each year, we must finalize the tax rates by May 15th.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, bylaw, this kind of bylaw needs 3 readings. And the tax rates have to set after the budget bylaw is adopted.
Yeah, yeah, no, I understand that.
Yeah, there's
Thank you.
timing issue.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, thank you. So I'm very disappointed in this because the advice I was given in an open meeting was, hey, if I've brought this up innumerable times since the budget began, was to wait until we get the tax rates, then change them at that time. So I was just doing what I was asked. And now I'm finding out it's unreasonable at this late hour to do it. However, with me, I always do things in a careful, steadfast, methodical way. I don't like risky moves. I don't like extreme moves. So we've already accomplished our 0% tax increase for this year. This was just an added bonus to bring in yet more money, which is my objective. I would prefer to do it in a more thoughtful manner so that the 2 landowners are notified well in advance, to allow them to give feedback and so on. But it is justified, and I've analyzed this quite a bit, but it's the mill rate in this case of each town that they apply to manage forest that counts. It's not the multiple. So we're low on some part of the equation here. For example, our last year's rate of around 12 is compared to Nanaimo's. Their mill rate with managed forestry was almost 20%. So we're short there. We're short with a lot of communities, Cumberland and so on. There's a lot that have higher mill rates applied to their forest lands. And I have not had time to look into this, but my guess is that it seems obvious the tax assessed value of forestry lands will be very similar on this part of the island from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So it's very achievable to increase it, a fair bit. But I'm going to err on the side of caution and steadfastness, and we'll just have to get what money we can from this next year because it's just too short time. I have not covered all the bases yet. I can't. I just got this information yesterday. So anyway, we'll leave it at that. That's my opinion. It's up to council what they want to do. Thank you.
Councillor Lerner.
Thank you. Yes, well, I appreciate everything that's been said here and the information that's been provided by council and in particular Councillor Savage and by Director Liu. This is something that previously I recall also receiving the same advice in a meeting that we should adjust these sorts of rates at the tax rate time and so if we can plan in advance to consider this option for 2024. I would greatly appreciate that because now we have, lots of notice and time to go through the process in whatever steps are needed. So otherwise, nothing to add. I think that the tax rates presented are sufficient to me. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Yes, I agree with those comments. This is very frustrating. I also recall that Counselor Savage was told to bring this up at this time, so hearing that now there really isn't time to do it and do it properly is a little bit frustrating, and I gather it isn't as simple as just reducing the contribution from the surplus fund because of this extra 2,000 or so dollars that are in the library fund. What do you do with that? I don't know if you can just put it in a holding fund or what, but just to confirm this actually really is not, would take a lot of time to do this. Yes, so I will go along with Councillor Savage as well.
Any additional speakers? And through to Councillor Savage, I really do appreciate the time you've taken to analyze this, and I think what has been brought forward is we need to look at having a more fulsome discussion and much earlier around some of these items, even as we get into the financial planning time that it's always in the fall, always seems to be around October, November, we get into financial planning, but similar to the RDN, we're gonna be starting to look at the financial impact of our decisions a lot earlier and as they occur live or in real time, as opposed to waiting until just that financial planning time of the year. So specifically around anything that results in staffing or increased staffing, we want to start looking at that sooner and trying to figure out how is this going to impact next year's tax requisition and so on. But this is along the same line of, we should be looking at doing a thorough analysis of those tax rates and multiples and so forth, and how that compares to other municipalities, especially around managed forests. Is there equity, or is it an equitable situation across, municipal jurisdictions and so forth? If you're, are we aligned with our neighbors? Like, so basically, Nanaimo and Parksville, and even the news for that matter. Yeah, so I appreciate the work that's gone into it and also the patience and moving forward. This council still will be responsible for 3 more financial plans, setting the tax rates for 3 more years. So after this year's done, so I think there's still time to look at how we are doing things within the municipality from a financial perspective. The other thing, just in the information that's provided, obviously, there's the invoice from the RDN. So, this year's requisition is 1.1 million. And then above that is, there wasn't really much change for the regional hospital district requisition, but that's getting up there now at almost $750,000. And there's a lot of pressure in this region for huge capital projects, and so that is not a static number. That will be going past $1 million, and it'll be fairly steady because there's lots of big infrastructure projects slated for the region, and ultimately the funding needs to be there, or at least our portion of the funding, and hopefully the province will take up the other their share, provided that they release the funds. So other than that, I don't know if there's anything further on the first 3 readings of this bylaw. Councillor Savage, go ahead.
Anyone else? All right, well, thank you. I just wanted to make this quite clear that there's just a couple of issues that are very, very important with this budget, and I'm not going to miss the opportunity to state it. And first, a hearty thanks to all of council, to every single one of us who together achieved the 0% tax increase. And this is very germane bringing this up at this point, but there's a small handful of people in the community who are saying we achieved this only by spending our reserve money. And this is a completely false statement. First of all, we used $72,200 from the COVID Restart Grant. This grant is not a reserve fund by any stretch of the imagination. It never was. This grant was given to help towns survive the COVID economy, and that includes covering tax income shortfalls. The previous council spent $900,000 of this $1.3 million dollar grant, and we never heard a complaint whatsoever. This current council spent the comparatively small amount of $72,200, which is less than 1/10 of what the last council spent. So the next thing is that with the accumulated general surplus, one of the sources of income we were told during this budget for the surplus is the extra money collected from the building inspection fees, where these fees outweigh the cost of building inspection. That goes into surplus. Well, we've every right to return some of this money back to residents, which is exactly what we did by spending a small portion of the accumulated general surplus on keeping the taxes down to zero. It's merely $42,600. And all of that might be the extra building fees that were charged above the cost, with the actual cost of the administering the building fees. So there's many sources of income for the general surplus, and a lot of it comes from residents. So we are not, that's not considered returning reserves back to using reserves to fund this tax amount. So I just wanted to be really clear on that. The way we accomplished this tax increase, is zero tax increase, was by rolling up our sleeves and looking at reducing expenses. That's what businesses do all the time. So anyway, I just also wanted to reiterate that this is what I'm talking about restructuring our finances over the next year, really getting into the maximizing income from non-tax sources and reducing expenses. So I just wanted to mention that. So well done. Thank you.
Okay, unless there's anything further, I'm going to call the question. Oh, Councillor Lerner, go ahead.
Thank you, and I appreciate that, Councillor Savage. It's quite accurate what you're saying. The one thing I want to add, of course, is that part of this requisition or tax rate has to do with the library. And the rates that they've set, their requisition saw an increase. Now that was set by the previous library board, and we are going to be going into the budget season at the library board sometime in the spring. So to look at 2024, because they're on a different cycle. So I look forward to reporting back on hopefully what I'm hoping will be a lower increase than what we saw this year. Thank you.
Councillor Mundell.
Can you request that they match the Lantzville goose egg of zero? That'd be lovely.
All right, so I'm going to move to call in questions. So all those in favor and opposed, that's carried unanimously. All right, takes us on to bylaw number 343. That the District of Lantzville 2023 alternate municipal tax collection scheme bylaw number 343 2023 be given first, second, and third reading, seconded by Councillor Savage for discussion. Councillor Savage, if you wish, and then Councillor.
Yes, just briefly, I'm really pleased to see that we're continuing to not stack up the big 10% penalty right on the being 1 day late at the beginning of July. So I think it's terrific. We're spreading it out a bit to allow those to can't help being a little bit late, that they're given now till the 3 months later before the whole penalty kicks in. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Yes, I'm all in favor of helping residents out with a little bit of financial planning here so they don't get the big bill at one time. However, I'm a little perplexed by the 2%. That's basically saying to residents, don't give the district your money. Put it in an investment where you can get more than 2% from your money. So it seems to me that rather than 2%, that number should match an average for interest on money invested, so that we're not saying to residents, do the smart thing and don't give the district your money right now. Go invest it. Thank you.
Okay, any additional comments? Okay, hearing none, I will call the question. All those in favor and opposed? Counselor Jones opposed? Oh, I was just checking. Okay. Okay, just noting Counselor Jones is opposed, carried. All right, just make sure I had the timing of the vote correct. Moving on to item 10 of the agenda, so has to do with, did you want to go ahead then?
Yes, I'll declare conflict on the next item due to my property, the proximity of my property. Thank you.
Okay. Just noting it's 7:24, Counselor Savage is leaving the meeting.
Take some reading.
There you go. Okay, so this is in relation to 6671 and 6685B Harwood Drive. So there's a couple of recommendations. This is from the committee of the whole meeting. I'll just make the motion, and I think we can take them together. So we're actually through the staff. Should we do them separately or together? Yeah, okay, I'd agree. 6-1, half dozen other. All right, I'll do both motions together. The council supports the concept plan of 6671 and 6685-6685B Harwood Drive as presented at the April 12th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting. That council authorizes staff to work with the owners of 6671 and 6685-6685B Harwood Drive to amend Section 219 covenant in accordance with the concept plan and commitments as presented at the April 12th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting. Is there a seconder to this? Second by Councillor Lerner. I'll just speak to it briefly. So the representative for this property or for the properties came in and made presentation to council at the committee whole meeting, walked council through the new concept plan, and for the most part, I personally thought it looked good, and I think there's a lot of added benefit to it. But the one thing I just really wanted to highlight is really the dedication of this developer to tree protection. So on page 51 of our agenda, underneath the summary, it indicates 10% tree protection and dash 10% of the existing tree canopy to be protected in addition to lands located within an environmental setback. In my opinion, this is huge. This is showing that, yes, it is possible for developers to retain trees in their developments. Not everything has to be cut down in the process of developing for new growth and so forth. So I've heard of this in other municipalities, and I commend the applicants for actually proceeding ahead with this commitment to the tree protection in this form. I know we're going through a tree bylaw and survey and so forth, and really that's the crutch of it right there is when we have development, it'd be nice that there is some preservation of trees and tree canopy and so forth. And I just think it's for the, where appropriate, it's for the betterment of the community, betterment for everybody. So again, my hat is off to them, and there's lots of other good things about it, but that's really the one thing that stood out to me. So through the rest of the council, I think, sorry, to the seconder, and then to the rest of the council. So Councillor Lerner.
Thank you. Yes. Well, I first want to thank the presenter and the developers representatives for coming to the Committee of the Whole. I think one of the reasons I was so eager to see Committee of the Whole meetings is because I think it's the right venue for that sort of opportunity for us to ask questions, for the developer to make a presentation. It's a little more relaxed atmosphere, gives council time to digest the information. And I appreciate what the developer has done to address council's concerns. I commend council for going through the process of looking at the original amenity contribution and trying to make it a request that would turn into something better for the community and potentially better for the development. And I think that council did the right thing there. I commend staff for working with the developer on coming forward with some amendments, and I do commend the developer for their hard work on that as well. I concur with Mayor Swain that there were some definitely some things in there that I very much appreciated seeing. In general, I can support this motion, although I do have a slight amendment to the first part of the motion, which I'll distribute in a second. Basically, I just think it's a housekeeping amendment, nothing that drastically changes any of the wording. But basically, there are some details that that the developer's representative said would be forthcoming at a future date. They'd have a request for a variance on a setback. And so I agree, I think I can support the what was presented, but in principle, pending those further details. So I think there's just a housekeeping amendment, and I'll just distribute it, if I may, to staff and council.
Okay, so I think Director Coates is probably
Yes.
going to
So
speak to
just
what I
for-
would speak to. so
Just for
go ahead.
clarity, the issues that are related to a development permit are totally separate from this process. The development variance permit or the development permit, those come to council as a package. They go up to the public and are decisioned at a later date.
Thank you. Yes, that's a good point, and that's exactly why I chose this wording. And it's, I'll just read it out, just the first part of the motion. The second part, I didn't have any amendment to. So it's two motions that have been moved, but it's only an amendment to the first. So the motion stays the same, that council supports the concept plan for 661 and 668-5B Harbor Drive as presented at the April 12th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting. It just adds in principle and without diminishing or relinquishing council's rights to exercise its decision-making authority. Essentially, it's just making it clear that there are still some pending details, and so we're agreeing in principle to what was presented, and I think that's something the developer would appreciate. Anyway, thank you.
Okay.
So if I understand what you're saying, is that your council's not providing their support at this point. When it's in principle, then that means you're not making a final decision today. Therefore, the second clause could not be enacted because it is staff are to work with them in accordance with the concept plan and commitments presented at the Committee of the Whole. So you can either choose to strike the in principle, and you know, it's fine to leave in that without diminishing or relinquishing council's right to exercise its decision-making authority on future, I don't know if you want to put applications or permits, but it's a separate process, development variance permit, development permit. So by making this amendment, saying it's in principle, then the second clause means nothing.
So through your worship to Director Coates, the wording you're suggesting is that it would say to strike in principle and instead just include without diminishing or relinquishing council's rights to exercise its decision-making authority on
Future applications.
Future applications.
Yeah.
Should we say related to this development?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Related to this
Yeah.
development. There we go.
So the only thing so your amendment would be to amend the motion on the floor by adding after Committee of the Whole meeting,
Right.
Without,
Without diminishing or relinquishing council's rights to exercise its decision-making authority on future applications related to this development.
yeah.
Okay, I just want to make it clear that there's still pending details that we need to know before we're not relinquishing any of our authority to make those decisions.
Yeah, what do you think, Ronald? I think that's fine. But that this amendment would still allow staff to, you know, that council has taken a position to support the concept plan, and it would allow staff to go ahead and work with the owner and make the amendments to the Section 219 covenant.
That is my intention, so that they can proceed to the
Yeah.
next stage of the application.
Yeah.
okay, and we need a seconder, so second by Councillor Jones. Okay, and then for additional discussion, okay, and then Councillor Jones, and then we'll go to Councillor Mundell.
Yes, thanks to Town Site Scott Mack for the presentation and for all of the new plans in the concept plan. It's much appreciated. I would like to note that, yes, there are details, and we will certainly get the details. I guess a report from staff in the future on many things. The variance, I wasn't aware that was a riparian area, so they would need a variance, and there will certainly be discussion around that. 15-meter is what the official community plan or permit, I believe, would require. There's also a very interesting report here from TOTH, the TOTH report, the environmental side of things. At one point, right near the end on page 59, the note is that there is an opportunity to reconfigure the pond feature during development to provide stormwater retention and to serve as an amenity for the proposed development. Won't come as anyone to a surprise. Won't come as a surprise to anyone that line caught my attention, as there will certainly be some additional runoff from the development, and there will need to be plans to deal with that water. So it's nice that there's a suggestion there that gives some direction for consideration, and I'll leave it at that. Looking forward to seeing the details. Thank you.
Councillor Mandel?
Yes, just confirming that if we agree to this, that it does not commit us to necessarily that 6-meter setback or any of the other sort of ideas that were presented, that we're not necessarily saying, yes, you get, as it's presented, that's how it will be determined. So just making sure that if we agree to support this, that we're not necessarily locked into anything at this point.
Well, certainly you're locked into supporting the concept plan, and that staff will go ahead and make the amendments to the Section 219 covenant. But the issue of variance, that is something that would be coming forward in a separate application package for council.
Okay. Just things like which trees are going to be retained, things like that. I think those questions still exist. So I guess as much as I liked the concept plan, I still had a lot of questions. I appreciate the presentation, but I guess I still have some small reservations.
Sorry, I'm not the planner, so I can't tell you what would and wouldn't be included in the development variance permit. But that's.
Yeah, I guess I'll speak to it a little bit as well. So, really what this is doing is giving the nod from council to, for staff to go ahead and work with the applicant and making these changes. Creating a new covenant 219 is going to cost money, not to also, state the obvious, which is, they have a consultant working for them, so it does cost the applicant money to keep utilizing the services of that consultant. And then we also have the issue of, we have staff that would be allocated to this, and that costs the municipality money. So, if this council has strong reservations about this concept plan and moving forward, then this is the time to state it. Otherwise, we are acting in, I would say, good faith and saying, you know what, and we think this is a decent application. It's ticking off a lot of the right boxes, maybe not perfectly, but it's doing a pretty good job of that, and it should proceed ahead. In terms of this finer details, that's not council's function, and I'll pick on the tree thing a little bit. Council's not going to be going out there and pointing out what trees stay and what trees go. That's going to be a function between staff and the developer. But there's a commitment that they are retaining 10% of the tree canopy. So how they're going to define that, I don't exactly know. But, you know, at that point, you know, it's, you know, we have to take that leap of faith and know, and that it's gonna be done properly. And, you know, I've said this before on other applications, it's only in their best interest to have the best looking subdivision, going, because that's gonna help them sell their lots. If it's just as plain Jane wackadoodle, you know, cookie cutter, subdivision, that's not gonna have high resale, and it's not gonna be in their best interest. So it needs to, have great curb appeal, and having trees in there is gonna lend to that great curb appeal. Having a curve in the road, again, great curb appeal. It's a subdivision that you'd wanna live in, just like they would, the applicants themselves or the property owners up there have designed it in such a way that we heard from the presenter, they wanna keep living there. So, I think all in all, it's, the plan looks really good. I don't think it's gonna tick every box for every individual member of council or in every, member of the community, but I think it does a pretty good job of ticking a lot of them. So, I appreciate the work that's been done on it, and, you know, I think the function of council is, you know, to get, you know, the best application in there, and that's, ticks off the majority of the boxes, and I think it's done that, so. Councillor Jones?
Yes, thank you. I can certainly support the motion as amended, and I am grateful for the concept plan as it's been provided. Definitely lots there to look forward to. Having said that, our due diligence as counselors is to have an understanding of the details, and we can't understand the details without having those details. So I am expecting that at some point in the future, council will see the details. I don't know if we have to ask for a staff report down the road or not on that, but I would like to know what the permeable surface is, how that is going to be constructed. We will have to have discussion, obviously, about the variance. I appreciate there's tree retention, and I am interested in how that is going to look. I would like to see how that is going to look. 10% is 10%. It doesn't give any of the detail, and I'm not really comfortable using this expression because I am supportive of what's happening here, but the devil is in the detail, and it is our due diligence as a council to see those details and to ponder them. So I just think we're doing our job here. Thank you.
Additional comments? Okay, so we're on the amendment, so I'm gonna call a question on the amendment, and then we're back to the main motion after that. So, all those in favor and opposed, so that's carried unanimously. Now we're back to the main motion as amended. Is there any further comment, debate? Okay, good. All right, so I'll move to call in a question. So all those in favor and opposed, that's carried unanimously. And we'll just need Councillor Savage back. All right, noting it's 7:43, Councillor Savage has returned to the meeting. At this point, we're on item 11 of our agenda, so 11A. So this is another committee of the whole recommendation from April 12th, 2023. I'll just make the motion that that council has reviewed and adopts the existing code of conduct policy number 3002-1. Is there a seconder to that? Seconded, three-way tie almost. Councillor Lerner is the seconder. And then for discussion, through to council, so we can go to the seconder first. So Councillor Lerner, if you wish.
We already discussed this at the committee of the whole meeting, so I don't have much to add, just that I'm thrilled to be working with this mayor and council, and I think that we conduct ourselves very, very appropriately in meetings, and that we and already sort of enshrine what's shown in the code of conduct. And so I thank all of council for their great behavior and amicability. So I support passing this motion so that we enshrine all of that in the code of conduct and can move forward with our obligations. Thank you.
Okay, additional speakers? All right, not much to say. That's sometimes a good thing. I'll just, I did forego my speaking turn as the mover, but I'll just briefly comment and take a bit of a different tack on this. So, you know, with this term so far, it's been quite busy for this council. There's been a lot of onboarding and right into financial planning, strategic planning, and as well as other opportunities for learning. And I think the thing that has impressed me thus far is just the commitment of this council to learn, to you know, get into the details of things, and it's a steep learning curve, and but also attending things that are outside of these this council chamber. So attending LGMA was one of the things that we tackled first, and then just even this past weekend with AVICC, which we'll hear about when we get to councillor updates. But again, it's been a lot of work, a lot of extra meetings, and I guess at this point, probably a thank you to staff is in order for putting up with council and all the extra meetings and answering all the questions and everything else that's been coming their way. But again, it's there's a high level of commitment from this council, and I think the community is in good hands. So at this point, unless there's anything further, I will move to calling the question. Okay, hearing or seeing nothing, I will call the question. So all those in favor and opposed, that's carried unanimously. That takes us on item 12A, which is mayor and council verbal updates. So we can start at Councilor Lerner's end of the
Sure,
U-shape.
thank you. I appreciate that. I have a few quick things to touch on, but I'll try and keep them all very short. There's been a number of things that have happened and that I've been honored to attend in the last since the last update. One was the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board meeting. We're still going through our strategic planning. We'll be starting budget soon. We're doing a facility master plan update. But the biggest thing to come out of that meeting was an approval of the replacement of a branch in Haida Gwaii. This is in the village of Masset. And based on consultation with the old village of Masset, as it's known, the First Nations there, the branch will include a Haida language preservation center in there. So, and some meeting spaces for the community. So that was actually a budget neutral item because there were grants available as well as reserves that had been set aside for that. So it was a wonderful opportunity for that. The second thing was that Councillor Savage and I attended the Housing Summit for UBCM in Vancouver. Wonderful opportunity to hear from provincial officials of all parties on their vision for housing in the province, as well as from various ministers, and to have a chance to speak with them. So that was amazing. And then, of course, as the mayor mentioned, AVICC was wonderful, and I was thrilled to see the resolution that the Broombusters had urged us to support passed. And I was also quite thrilled to see the panel on truth and reconciliation. That was wonderful. The last two things I'll mention was the tree bylaw open house. Thank you to staff for their work on putting that forward. It was wonderful to attend and hear the feedback from the community. We've also seen that there's a lot of surveys, it seems, coming in, so I look forward to reading those. There have been concerns from what I would say is all ends of the spectrum when it comes to tree bylaw, and it was fascinating to hear the discussion at that particular event. One thing that did come up a couple of times was the idea of finding balance. And I look forward to working with council and the community to find that balance. And I acknowledge that a number of people weren't happy with the process for the surveys, and we can discuss that further in a later time, but I think it shows the need for a better survey process in this community, as has been brought up by Councillor Mundell and others. And the final thing was yesterday I was honored to attend the Yom HaShoah commemoration at the BC Legislature. That is the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. And there were representatives from all of the parties. Our Minister of Municipal Affairs was there, as were members of our representatives at the MLA level. Mr. MLA Adam Walker and Sheila Malcolmson were both there, and there were representatives from all three parties. And it was a very moving and touching event to hear the keynote speaker, who was a Holocaust survivor himself. So very meaningful and honored to be there. Thank you.
Counselor Jones.
Thank you. I'll just stick to one topic, and that is the AVIC conference and some of my takeaways. I noted that many of the workshops offered at the convention addressed issues intimately connected with challenges arising from climate change. We are receiving, local governments were certainly receiving direction from many of these workshops to prioritize climate action. One of the workshops was called Managing Emergencies, and it discussed the future with more droughts, heat waves, and floods, and some strategies there. There was another workshop on regional collaboration in the decade of climate action that addressed ways municipalities might work together to address some of their common issues, for example, stormwater management strategies and ways to rebuild a community's tree canopy. I also attended a workshop somewhat related called Growing Farmers and Food Resilience in the Cowichan Valley. This was actually extremely interesting. The Cowichan Valley, we received a lot of details about their plans. They've got 23,000 acres of land being farmed and some very interesting strategies to help people who don't have access to good food, grown food, and what their plans are, what they're doing to educate and involve people in that community. And the growing farmers part of it was also really interesting. Farmers aren't growing out of the ground. What they are doing is training farmers. They noted that young people who have grown up on farms, working on farms, aren't really interested in farming the way they used to be in the path. They're not following in the footsteps so much anymore. But what they are seeing are a number of people, younger people who live in cities that are wanting to leave the cities and get into farming. They called them the dreamers. And they have quite a extensive program called Young Agrarians, where these young people are trained into the field of farming, so to speak. And further to that, they're also matched with land that property owners want to have farmed, but don't have anybody to farm them. So this program of training farmers and matching them with land to be farmed has been extremely successful. You can Google Young Agrarians and get all the details you want there. I found it quite interesting. And finally, just to wrap that up, there was a workshop on the gas tax fund, which you probably know has actually been called the Canada Community Building Fund for a while now. And the terms of use for this fund now identifies a clean environment as one of the top requirements for projects. And my closing thoughts on this are that while words and intentions speak well, it's the action that gets the job done. And that is the key challenge for us as a community to grow with climate action as a priority. Thank you.
Counselor Savage.
Thank you. First one, it's a song, but not from me. It's from Lantzville's own Raymond Salgado. So congratulations to him. He appeared on and made it to the next round on Canada's Got Talent. And he sang a great old classic by Vancouver's Bryan Adams, that lovely hit Heaven. So he's also sang at the Canucks game, so congratulations to him. And also Dylan Ferguson is another Lantzville grew up here, and he's now a goalie in the NHL. So Lantzville's really getting well represented for some fine people. Well done, Raymond. The Housing Summit, this is really important. We only have a short time to do it, but both Councillor Lerner and I met some CMHC people there at the Housing Summit, and they spoke about this upcoming CMHC Housing Accelerator Fund. And I also went on a seminar they had on it online just last week. So I've got all the info on it, and it's a great opportunity for Lantzville. It's going to be $4 billion from the federal government, distributed by population to the provinces. So just picture what a piece of that BC will get, and I calculated that there's a very good chance Lantzville can get part of that. And it works out to approximately $20,000 per unit. So if we can come up with 100 units where we can point to this fund as helping us accomplishing these housing units, that's $2 million for 100 units. So it's very important we at least try and follow up on this, and I've learned just how to do it. And once you get the funds, it's a wide latitude of things you can spend on it. It's very much up to the community. But the idea is they're trying to encourage housing. And one of the keys is if there's going to be many applicants, the ones that start a relationship right away will be the ones that'll rise to the top, I believe, of the applications. And this webinar underlined, get your applications in, or at least start inquiring about how to do it. And they're ready to help and start the communications going. And they're opening up the applications this summer. They mentioned July at the summit for only 45 days. It's a small window of opportunity. And so it would be great to start right away to get a handle on the best way to fill out the form. They'll help you with that, get it in, and but there's a bit of work council has to do in the meantime as well. So anyway, that's it for that. And just to let you know how useful these summits are, it was pretty grueling for Councillor Lerner and I in the sense of hard work. It was long days, and we did a ton of meeting people, listening to people, and the Premier was there. And the reason it was so valuable, we now know the beating heart of what's going on and exactly what they're proposing, what they want, and the bottom line is it's to fuel a big increase in immigration and to create the housing to accommodate this immigration is basically the bottom line of this housing. And many of the newcomers will be coming to BC, so it was highly worthwhile, highly interesting. So, and same with the AVICC conference, they're very valuable as well. And so there we go. Thank you.
Councillor Mundell.
I'll be short and sweet. Yes, I also attended the AVICC, and for those watching who don't know what AVICC stands for, it's the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities. So it was a really good opportunity to meet with other municipalities and share our collective resolutions that can then be put forward to UBCM, which then goes up the chain to the provincial government. So it's kind of a network to work together and also to funnel information and requests and resolutions up to the provincial government. So worthwhile attending. I'm grateful that it was over a weekend, so I didn't have to miss too many days of work for that. And very grateful also that it was offered in Nanaimo, which also kept expenses down because we were not needed accommodation for that. So grateful to attend things when they do come to our town, and I think Nanaimo put on a good conference, so kudos to them. Yeah, that's all I have for this week.
And for myself, not a ton of updates, but I also attended AVICC, but not nearly as long as counselors here this evening. I just attended on Friday. Had a brief appearance there, so I went to the mayor's, chairs, and chiefs meeting, and it was interesting. We basically sat in a circle and we discussed the challenges around housing and homelessness and so forth in the region and Vancouver Island, and we had to basically come up with a positive or negative and share our experiences and so on. But the one thing I can say for sure is it was very diverse. So every community has their challenges, and a lot of it has to do with how big you are. So it's not a one shoe fits all kind of, or one size fits all kind of situation. It's there's a lot of diversity in the experiences that were shared. AVICC it's a really good opportunity to network and get to see other councillors and mayors and chairs and from other areas and start making connections and so on. And for myself, again, it's nice to see a lot of familiar faces and just even the connections I've made through the Island Economic Trust and the mayors and chairs and MLAs and so forth that I work with and so forth. And the funny thing about it is my daughter sang, as you witnessed, and "O Canada," and as I was filming it, it's nothing funnier than kind of getting a nudge from the MLA, Malcolmson, that I'm not doing a good enough job, because as I was recording, I tipped my camera forward and all you can see is the bottom half of my daughter, not her head. Anyways, but it's about the relationships. That's what I'm driving at, that you develop by attending some of these conferences, and those relationships can go a long ways, and essentially getting the things that are best for your community to actually come to fruition. So don't ever undervalue those relationships, and they're sincere. I think we walk away from those, and it's about developing friendships with these people, because after all, we're just people. We're not just wearing politician hats 24/7. We all have kids and dogs and cats and stuff like that. We have a lot of we share a lot of life experiences, and we have a lot of commonalities. But again, it is important to have a presence at these conferences, and I'm very much looking forward to UBCM in the fall. And again, it's meeting up with other mayors and councillors and chairs and so forth from other municipalities, and sharing those experiences, and also rubbing elbows with the people who make the big decisions about grants and so forth, and attending those meetings. Very, very important. But I feel that in our region we have great representation from our MLAs, and even MP Barron was there. So so it was really good event, and I hope council got a lot of good stuff out of it. So other than that, that's really all I have for my updates this evening. So we'll move on in the agenda. So we have introduction of late items. So I think Councillor Jones, you have a late item. So if you want to state the nature of your late item.
Yes, the late item is time sensitive, as it addresses the tree bylaw survey and the work that staff will be doing on that. I have a motion, if it's okay for me to read that.
If you want to read
Speak
the
to it
motion, or we can just vote on considering the late item right now without the motion being read.
As you
If you feel
wish.
like you've done enough job explaining your late item, then we can just vote on whether or not
I think
we're
it's
here.
quite self-explanatory in the motion, that the summaries, and I'll read it back slower for you, Director Coates, that the summaries of the tree bylaw survey prepared by staff for council include separate summaries for the online survey and the hard copy survey. And further, that staff provide council with all content in the comments sections verbatim as written. Would you like me to read that again more slowly now? That the summaries of the tree bylaw survey prepared by staff for council include separate summaries for the online survey and the hard copy survey. And further that, staff provide council with all content in the comments sections verbatim as written. Does that work? Should hard copy read mail out? Is that clear?
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
thank
so
you.
that's the late item. We'll just vote to consider it. So I'll call a question on that. All those in favor and opposed, that's carried unanimously. Okay, so now we'll consider the late item. So you're gonna move that motion that was just read. So do we have a second? Is that what you're doing? You're moving that
Yes,
motion? Okay.
please.
And then we
Move
just need a seconder to that, seconded by Councillor Savage. And then for discussion, go ahead, Councillor Jones, and then Councillor Savage.
Yes, thank you. Very much appreciate the work done by staff on the tree bylaw survey. As you know, it's been pointed out that there were some flaws. Residents felt some flaws in the online version, mainly due to not being able to track the resident that entered the online version, nor being able to restrict the number of times a person completed that survey. You just needed to grab a device with a different IP address, I believe. We've talked about this problem with SurveyMonkey before, so just in the interest of that part of the survey not skewing the results by being collated with the mail-out copy, it would be useful for council to receive them separately, the information. And the second part is just really, there's so much to be learned from every little comment that a resident takes the time to write into the hard copy version. So if we can actually see those comments just quoted as they are, I think that would be a very effective way to convey the information to council. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Savage.
No, I agree with everything said. I'll certainly support it. Thank you.
And Councillor Mandel.
Yes, I can support the motion. We'll probably have a more fulsome discussion when we get into the tree bylaw. But I have a lot of concerns about the survey process, both the online and the hard copy. We were just outright told that I did 4 copies and handed them in, or I did, multiple different online ones, which unfortunately kind of taints the process and makes the numbers less valid. So we can probably get to that during the tree bylaw, and then maybe in a future meeting to discuss potential options that will prevent something like this from happening in the future. But I do agree it would be worthwhile to read the comments, because I think that's where we're probably going to get the most depth of information from residents. So I can support this.
Okay, Councillor Lerner.
Yes, thank you. I can support the motion. I appreciate the hard work by staff on the survey. I know right now we're at in a spot where we don't have what I would consider an optimal online solution for surveys, and it's something that we've talked about at previous meetings that I hope to see come to fruition in the future. And I've had residents contact me basically to say that they on all spectrums of the responses to this, saying that they were concerned. So I appreciate being able to see all the comments in particular. This is a vital thing. It's not easy to get thousands of residents in a room, but if they have an opportunity to send in their comments and those are photocopied for us to read as part of our democratic process and the input we receive, I think it's vital that we learn from that. And as I mentioned earlier, the importance of finding balance in our decision making with regards to the tree bylaw. So some of the comments I've received have been very insightful when people have contacted me. I've urged them to fill out the survey, and hopefully they have, because those insights are really what's at the heart and minds of the community, and provide, the expertise that's out there in our community is truly valuable, and we need to weigh all of our options. So thank you to everyone who's filled out the survey, and I look forward to reading the comments, and I support the motion. Thank you.
Okay, unless there's anything further, I'm inclined to call the question. All right, nothing. So I will call the question. All those in favor and opposed, that's carried unanimously. Any other late items? Not aware of any notices of motion? All right, and public clarification, do we have anybody registered remotely? No, we do not. And I think this is maybe the first time this term we've had nobody in the gallery, so. All right, so at this point, I'm just going to switch gears. So we're gonna close the meeting pursuant to sections 91A, C, D, E, I, K, and 92B of the community charter. Is there a seconder to that? Second by Councillor Lerner. Any discussion? Yeah, I'll call the question on that. All those in favor and opposed? Okay, that's carried unanimously. We're back in camera.